Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Pelikan, a part of their Edelstein series, Sapphire. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Welcome back. I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy, and for those of you that are new here, I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, the first writing samples are always done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. Let's get into the first one, 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, moments of shading. Like Pelikan is definitely darker than the beginning of Edelstein, which starts lighter and works its way darker. Extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, moments of shading like quick goes darker to lighter to darker. Fox is a much darker word, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a little bit better shading than the extra fine, like brown goes dark to light to dark, quick goes dark to light to dark. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, and we do get it, and the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Noodler's Charlie was inked up, used for day and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM, Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 34 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us really no color variation, but we're not getting it in the writing. And the smear test, I do not think you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is rather interesting because we see a very light purple at the bottom, and as it comes up, we see only blue at the top. Now the one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water, and that purple on the bottom is moving much slower, much more easily noticed there, and the blue fully gathered at the top, but I'm not expecting much resistance here. The third and final standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading, 4 seconds to dry. Medium, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows some color variation, but we're not getting it. The medium shows none, and we got none. And a smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's quite a bit of blowout that's occurring. It's still very readable, but being super risk averse, I probably would not use this in a note-taking situation. Water is starting to really lift some of this ink, but not tons of it. We do see quite a bit of that purple still left in place. Pen flush does a whole lot more than water does. We're starting to see the beginnings of some of the white of the paper coming through, and the 1/3 bleach solution completely obliterates it. However, it only took water to get this out of my pen. Additional writing samples are done on paper that changes up from video to video. Here, we're going to take a look at Leuchtturm 1917 paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. The nicest tone on the page right here. The scrubby for both are showing us really no color variation. We're not getting it. And a smear, I don't think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Edelstein Sapphire has a viscosity of 1.98, making this a little wetter than normal. There's a link to a video down in the description that shows how the viscosity is tested and how that bell curve is made if you're interested in. If you're not, let's move on to the second writing sample, or the next writing sample, a memoranda pad like I would have used when I was in the Marines. Now we have no bleeding. We do have the ink getting quite a bit darker into the paper right here. I guess you could call it some bleed in, but certainly not bleed through. And this would not stop me from using the back of the paper. Not a problem. It's doing really well. It's just causing ghosting there, and otherwise there's no ghosting. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, and we're not getting it. In a smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Edelstein Sapphire has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making this dry a bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on crowd favorite 20-pound copy paper. This bleeds significantly, and without even looking at the other side, the bleed has feathering, just to give that some idea. Yes, there's tons of bleeding all the way through. These two darker spots did touch the page underneath, but otherwise it really did very well in terms of not corrupting the next page. But it did have quite a bit of bleeding and quite a bit of ghosting, and this is just fun to circle all of it. It's like a searching puzzle. So tons of ghosting. You couldn't use the back of the page. Look at that medium. That's gone to about a broad, maybe almost a double broad. Does it feather? Yes, it completely joins some stuff together. It's horrific, but you don't have to use this with a medium nib. It's got spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine has tiny feathering all over it. You see it in the BR in brown, the K in quick, the entire word of Fox. But with the extra fine, its feathering isn't in a way that I see it not being used. So there's your good part there. It does spread a little bit to about a fine. No halo, sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Scrubby shows no color variation because there is none. And a smear test, you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Edelstein Sapphire, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice red ink from Atramentis, the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Oriental Red, because apparently the color naming here was a little culturally insensitive. So what do I think of Edelstein's Sapphire? There isn't a ton of shading, but this is a pop off the page kind of color. It's very vibrant. I love this color despite it's not shading. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? Now, I like it out of really every pen, which would make it a dealer's choice, but I think it looks a bit better in a wet fine or wet extra fine. I hope you got something out of this video, and tomorrow we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Yamabudo, or Crimson Glory Vine.